Hello, Los Cerritos Wetlands enthusiasts. I'm excited to welcome you to our first virtual land tour. This land tour is brought to you by the Los Cerritos Wetlands Land Trust in partnership with Tidal Influence. My name is Eric Zahn, and I am the Principal Restoration Ecologist for Tidal Influence. And I have been exploring Los Cerritos Wetlands for the good part of the last 15 years. I really enjoy bringing people out into the wetlands, and unfortunately we cannot do that these days, so we're taking the opportunity to virtually explore this wonderful open space in Southern California. I have a colleague with me who will be my co-pilot and co-tour leader. Jade, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name's Jade, and I've been able to explore the Los Cerritos Wetlands for about the past 3 years, and it's definitely been a great experience. I am now the Restoration Programs Coordinator, so if you're tuning in, I've probably seen a lot of your faces and miss having you out there helping us get some work done and make a difference in the world. And to all you new faces, welcome, and hopefully we can meet one day and actually do this tour in person. But for now, I really hope that you enjoy this tour and this special twist that we put on it, and have a good time today.
Yeah, it should be fun, and we are using the powers of Google Earth in order to explore these wetlands and beyond. That's what's awesome about this, is we're going to be able to go places that we would never be able to go when we're on the ground, including this view. I personally have never seen the Earth from this view before. You have to be an astronaut to do so. And so, yeah, here's our planet, and the Los Cerritos Wetlands is somewhere on this planet. Let's zoom in a little bit. And here we go. We see the Pacific coast of North America, and specifically zooming into Southern California in the United States. And the wetlands at the Los Cerritos Wetlands are considered to be, historically, a southern coastal salt marsh. And that type of plant community is found in the United States between Point Conception and the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, it does extend down into Baja California, but what I brought up on the screen right here is the historical extent. And historically, there are about 30 different coastal estuaries within this region. You go above Point Conception, and the community changes just a little bit. Now, the great thing about Los Cerritos Wetlands is it's right in the middle of this eco region. So let's zoom in a little bit further, and we can start to see what's going on in the vicinity of Los Cerritos Wetlands. Take it a little bit further. This is San Pedro Bay. San Pedro Bay runs from the Palos Verdes Peninsula down to Newport Bay. And within this bay, historically, there were 6 different estuarine systems. You had Wilmington Lagoon, which was the estuary of the Los Angeles River and is almost completely gone. You have Alamitos Bay, where Los Cerritos Wetlands is, and that's the estuary of the San Gabriel River. Anaheim Bay, where the Seal Beach National Wildlife Refuge is located. Bolsa Bay, where the Bolsa Chica wetlands are located. You have the Huntington Beach wetlands, the estuary of the Santa Ana River, and then lastly, you have Newport Bay, where the Upper Newport Bay Ecological Reserve is currently located. And if you look, you can see that historically there was quite a lot of coastal wetland habitat, and over the past century or so, in this vicinity, 12,000 acres have been lost, about 75% reduction in coastal wetland habitat between these 6 systems. And Los Cerritos Wetlands is no different. As we zoom into Los Cerritos, you can see that it once was a 2,400 acre complex, and it's dominated by this green color, and that green color indicates vegetated tidal wetlands. So most of it was vegetated tidal wetlands historically. There's a little bit of sand flats or mud flats and some tidal channels going through. But the scenery looks quite different these days, and if we remove this historic layer, you can see the remaining 500 or so acres of open space that currently exists and is available for potential restoration. Jade, how could you describe the surrounding areas currently around the 500 acres of Los Cerritos Wetlands?
Yeah, so these surrounding areas, they are definitely not vegetated. They are urban edges, and they have been heavily urbanized with infrastructure, roads, and all of this, which is fragmenting, segmenting these different parts of what is left of the Los Cerritos wetlands. So there's not a full connection of these wetlands anymore, which could cause a problem. Of those 500 about acres that are left of the open space, they still have a ton of biodiversity and life in them, but they are degraded. And what we do today to help them can really make a difference. And learning about it through this tour, you'll get to learn a lot about what we do out there. So, Eric, what tour are we going on today?
Well, I'm excited to say that today we are doing the turtle trek.
Nice.
Should we get down to the trailhead and get this thing going?
Let's check it out.
So this is what you would see at the beginning of our usual tour. You'd see this lovely little tidal creek that runs through 100 acres of land that is owned by the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority. We sometimes call it the Hellman Ranch. And we usually all gather right about here and start all of our tours from this location. So if you wanted to see more of that lovely little tidal creek, you'd have to head in this direction, and we have a separate tour for that called the Raptor Ramble. Today, like I said, we're doing the turtle trek, so we're going to go and see some sea turtles, which is super crazy and super rad. So we're going to head actually in this direction over into Long Beach. Right now, we're in the city of Seal Beach. We'll be heading over to Long Beach to walk along the San Gabriel River and look for sea turtles. So I think we should start walking over and follow this trail. So the first point that we come to is this interesting property right here. You can see our trail goes right through the middle of it. And on this property, there is a little tidal wetland behind it, but there is a large concrete foundation. And this concrete foundation has an interesting story to what it used to support. What used to be out there, Jade?
Yeah, so right there in that concrete area used to be a place called the Airport Club, is what it started out in about the 1960s, and the Airport Club was a gambling hall. So people would go there, make some money, and then shortly after that it became a place called Marina Palace, and Marina Palace was more of an entertainment center for artists to come, and from what I've heard, the rumors, I've heard performers and artists like Van Morrison, Tina Turner, The Doors have all performed there, so it sounded like a pretty great place to be back in the day.
And I've heard the same, and I've heard all sorts of rumors about who played there, and no one really knows. It was likely a smoke-filled room, quite hazy. But yeah, I've heard like the Byrds played there, Stevie Wonder, and even, rest his soul, Little Richard supposedly played there. So it must have been a rad place. And when you go to the site, you can see the remnants of the old parking lot. You can see actually the lines in the parking lot. You can see the old places where the light poles used to be and the old driveways and all of that. So really interesting spot that we walk through on this tour. And after we go through that State Lands Commission-owned piece of property, we head across over to a property owned by the Department of Water and Power. And it's right at the beginning of what we call the Haynes Cooling Channel. And here's what the Haynes Cooling Channel might look like on a nice overcast day, which we find quite often in the Los Cerritos Wetlands. It's a pretty wide body of water. It's conveying a lot of water. And it's an interesting plumbing system that is allowing for that conveyance. And actually, the water is not coming from the river. It's coming from the Alamitos Bay Marina over here. And there's 7 different culverts. They're actually large tunnels that are running from the marina underneath the river and all coalescing at this point. And water is being pulled through those culverts up this channel by very strong pumps that are associated with the Haynes generating station. And you can see these forebays right here. The water is being drawn into those forebays and pumped through these generating stations, and then finally emitted into the San Gabriel River at these outfalls at a legal limit of 105 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hot. That allows you to potentially surf in Seal Beach without a wetsuit in the wintertime. It's really warm, and it's created an interesting dynamic with a false ecosystem in this river of warmer than usual water. Now, that process that I just described of bringing that water up the channel and dumping it into the river is a process called once-through cooling. And once-through cooling, there's actually a legislature to eliminate it. And very soon, I can't predict exactly when because extensions keep on getting provided to these energy operators. But at some point soon in California, once-through cooling will no longer exist, and all of these facilities will have to be air-cooled. Now, coastal areas, especially coastal wetlands and power plants, are often commingling. And I want to share a couple of these spots with you just because we can. And I want to take you to another spot where there is, just up the coast, a power plant in a coastal wetland. And here we are in Oxnard, California. And we're at a power plant in the middle of what we call Ormond Beach Wetlands. And this particular power plant is operated by Reliant Energy. So if you're a Houston Texans fan, you may have been to Reliant Stadium. So this is a large energy company, and it owns a pretty ancient power plant right here on the coast. And Ormond Beach, while it is degraded, is a wonderful wilderness, and Jade and I have been lucky to explore it, mapping out a rare and endangered plant species that still occurs here. They have plans for a lofty restoration of these wetlands, but this power plant being right in the middle really fragments it. And there's hopes that this power plant will actually be decommissioned and this land will become, once again, naturalized. One of the reasons why the restoration of Ormond Beach is so important is it's actually part of a really large wetland complex right next door. And Jade's been out here a lot. What is this spot called, Jade?
Yeah, this place is called Magoo Lagoon, which we've, again, had a lot of experience and opportunities to get out there and map endangered species and do water quality monitoring there.
Yeah, and you can see it's an active military base, so when you're out there doing your field work, you got to make sure you don't get hit by an airplane, right?
Yeah, there's a lot to look out for. You have to be very vigilant out there.
But still a beautiful place. Another beautiful place down the coast is San Diego Bay. And this is an interesting story of a power plant. Where is it? I thought there was a power plant here. Interesting. Well, let's look back in time and see what we can find. No, we don't want to measure. We want to go back in time. And if we go back far enough, hey, look. Oh, there's some power grids. There's some clouds. Oh, there's a power plant. So there used to be a power plant in South San Diego Bay. And actually, this is one of the first locations, I mentioned this is a turtle trek, where the Pacific green sea turtle was documented using embayments in North America. And they were coming right up into these forebays of the power plants, and everyone thought that these sea turtles, their existence was associated solely with this bay because of the power plant. The power plant went away, and guess what? The sea turtles did not. So this bay is shallow, has lots of warm water, and lots of great foraging opportunities for young sea turtles. So the sea turtles are still in San Diego Bay despite the power plant leaving, and that gives us hope in Los Cerritos Wetlands that if once through cooling ceases, then the sea turtles will still stick around. Now, the last power plant, this is not a power plant tour, I realize, it's a turtle trek tour, but the power plants are an important part of the story. The last place I want to take you is Jade's home spot, her home wetland here in Huntington Beach, California. And if you look at the power plant that's operated by AES, which also operates one of the ones on the San Gabriel River, you can see they have some construction going on here. And Jade, what has it been like to see this construction occurring right next to your field site in Huntington Beach Wetlands?
Yeah, it's been pretty interesting watching this new plant go up and watching the other one still right next to it. There's a lot going on, but to see it my whole life and then this new thing be constructed right next to it has been pretty interesting, and it'll be different to see the smokestacks right there in the front taken down. Yeah, it's been loud and noisy, but everything has been functioning great, and it will hopefully serve as a great new source of energy for the communities.
And I actually just brought up the most recent image of the site, and you can see the complete facility is built. There's two new power plants right here, and these are being air-cooled by this system. If you go underneath that system, it's crazy. They have massively large fans underneath there, and that's how they're cooling the turbines now. Instead of using seawater, they're using air, and you can see the picture of the fans there in the half-built version. And what's most interesting is what the land used to be. And if I go back far enough, we should be able to find an image. It used to be a tank farm, right? So these power plants used to be powered by petroleum from these tanks. No longer need these tanks because they're now natural gas powered. And so they took their old storage for their old fuel source and turned it into a new power plant. Eventually, these old stacks will go away, and Huntington Beach Wetlands then the landscape will look a little bit different. But that's enough about these power plants. Let's get back to where we were. I think we're hanging out in the Haynes Cooling Channel. That's what got us started on all this power plant discussion. Here we are, back present time on the Haynes Cooling Channel. There's often a great variety of marine life also right around here because the fresh Pacific Ocean water is being sucked into this area, and there's lots of hard surfaces for different marine organisms to grab onto. But then we usually walk along this trail right here, and we come to a place that we call Callaway Marsh. And Callaway Marsh is a small pocket wetland connected to the San Gabriel River by about a 4-foot wide culvert. And there's a small amount of salt marsh in there, but it's highly degraded. Jay, do you ever see much wildlife using that site?
I sure do. It may be a degraded, fragmented wetland, but we still see some tidal influence coming in there, allowing for sometimes Belding savanna sparrows, which is an endangered bird, usually hanging out around the fence line, some killdeers, even great blue herons, and some egrets in there as well. So it still has a lot of life in there.
And then we come up to this fence line right here. It's a rusty, ragged old looking fence, and we call it the Jurassic Park gate. And we're not keeping dinosaurs behind it. We're keeping these oil pumps, these oil mules that they're often called. And they actually have become rare in the landscape. There used to be many more in the Seal Beach field, and there still are a few that are holding on. And on this tour, we get to walk through an active oil field. This land is owned by the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority, so it's owned by a public entity, and the operator, Signal Hill Petroleum, continues to operate to access the resources below the 500 feet of surface. And so we walk through this active oil field, and it's really interesting to see the juxtaposition of that active oil field right next to an active community-based restoration site. We're coming upon Zedler Marsh, and surrounding Zedler Marsh is a 12-acre site where we've been enhancing a variety of coastal habitats. And actually in this specific area, we're doing a species mitigation for a special little plant that we have out there. And Jade has a lot of on-the-ground experience with that plant. Can you tell us a little bit about what that plant is?
Yeah, these sites are mitigation sites for a special status species called southern tar plant, or Centromatia perryi australis. So there it is right there. Nice picture, has some yellow inflorescence, and you can see there are some sharp little spikes. It looks like the leaves are forming. So again, I mean, you want to always stay on trail and never impact this species, but if you rub up against it, yeah, those little spikes can hurt. So always best to leave that one alone and safe.
It lets you know that it's there, right?
Yes. Sure does.
Now, not only is Zedler Marsh part of a habitat enhancement project, but we've also developed a wonderful new access trail for the public, and also specifically for elementary level education programs. So we target, and the Los Cerritos Wetlands Land Trust puts a lot of work into targeting underprivileged areas of Los Angeles County and Orange County, and getting school groups out here to gather and learn about nature. A lot of these students don't ever get to be out in nature, and this is a wonderful place that we've created for them. And Jade is one of our leaders of those programs. Not only do we have these trails, but we also have an active place where we grow all of our native plants. So we have a native plant nursery facility here, and all of the wetland plants and many of the upland plants are all grown here, and a lot of that is all volunteer-based. So we're using all of the native genetics and propagules from Los Cerritos Wetlands to create the vegetation that we install throughout the site. And that's what's really incredible about it, is that we have these trails, we have these facilities, we have this oil field, and we've created habitat that didn't used to be as diverse, and 2 endangered bird species have started using this 12-acre area, and they have very different needs.
That's right.
Jade does a lot of monitoring of these species, so she's the best person to tell us about these 2 bird species.
Yeah, so of those 2 bird species, we have one that likes to hang out more in the wetland habitat closer to the tides, and then we have one that likes to hang out in the upland area. The one that likes to hang out right there near Zedler Marsh in the tidal area is called the Belding Savannah Sparrow, and the Belding Savannah Sparrow likes to perch on a plant called pickleweed. The males will use that plant to sing, fend off its territory, attract a mate, and to ultimately nest in. And so it's a really important spot for these birds because they're only found in coastal salt marshes. So it's very special habitat for them, which they need to survive. And in our marsh at Zedler, we have about 5 nesting pairs this year so far. So that's about what we see on average for the past 2-3 years now. So it's great to see that they are staying constant in their numbers. And right above that, within our trail system, we have more of a mule fat willow scrub forming right there that we're restoring. And a bird that likes that is the leaf-bell's vireo. And the leaf-bell's vireo likes more of a canopy layer, being in the dry scrub, and that's why part of our active restoration, which a lot of you have helped us with, is installing a lot of willows to add more dimension to that canopy layer, which those birds love. And so these are both endangered species, and our active restoration has really helped improve their habitat and life in this area.
It's amazing what you can do for wildlife with a small space of really well maintained natural habitat. And I want to give you an idea of what Zedler Marsh looks like on the ground. Here's one of our tours, and people standing over the culvert at Zedler Marsh looking across it. It's only about a 3-acre salt marsh, but it serves a lot of different wildlife with those ecological needs that they have. And yeah, I've always been amazed that the Belding Savannah sparrows are here and growing in number as we continue to improve and enhance this site. So here's Zedler Marsh. It's funny because we go on this turtle trek and we fool people into coming and seeing our wetland habitats as well. And they seem to enjoy that aspect of it. But let's keep on heading up this road. We're going right between the San Gabriel River and the Haines Cooling Channel, and we're going up actually towards the Haines Generating Station up to 2nd Street or Westminster right now, or right here. And this is a great opportunity to really experience what cars feel like when they're going 50 to 60 miles per hour past you. They're fast and it's dangerous, and so we have to get our whole group together. Often we have 50 to 100 people on this tour and get them all to cross at once and make sure nobody gets hit. Imagine being a coyote or some other terrestrial wildlife species having to get around these areas that are so fragmented by these large roadways. It is challenging when they're also pinched by these waterways. So this is a great example, by being humans going across here, of what the wildlife has to deal with on a daily basis. After we safely cross the street, we head up the San Gabriel River, and we go across these outfalls that I was speaking about earlier. We usually go up this second outfall, and that's the best place for us to see sea turtles. And we all go and we hang out on the riprap right there, and we find our Zen moments. Our leaders will explain what's the best way to view a turtle. And basically what you have to do is you have to pick a piece of water out in front of those outfalls, which is, when we look at those outfalls, I always say, I guarantee today I will see a sea turtle. I don't guarantee you will if you're on the tour, because you have to pay attention and stare. You can't look away because the turtles are surfacing very quickly. Now, today on this tour, I guarantee that all of you that are listening in are going to see a sea turtle. And here comes one right now. There it is. And that's what it looks like when you're on the San Gabriel River looking for a sea turtle. They pop their little heads up like that. They take a breath. Remember, this is a reptile. It breathes air. It has lungs. It can hold its breath for a very long time, and it goes back down. And if they're inactive, they can stay underwater for sometimes upwards of 20 minutes. Now, this is not the only place you can see the sea turtles along the river. Jade, you know another good spot to see them, right?
Yeah, so though a lot of people think that these Pacific green sea turtles that we're seeing in this water, they like the affluent coming out 105 degrees Fahrenheit. I tend to see them all throughout the river when I do my water monitoring, specifically right in front of the culvert into Zedler Marsh. So if you remember Zedler Marsh, it has tidal influence due to a culvert, and that low-lying marsh and all the nutrients that are in there, and it serves as a nursery habitat as well for fish. So all that life that is constantly flushing out into the water, the warmer water that is heated to have the fish nutrients, I believe creates a great spot for the Pacific green sea turtles, because when I'm usually working, that's where I see them the most. So even when this power plant is fully decommissioned, I know that the sea turtles will still have plenty of life to live off of and grow, and will still live a healthy life due to the Zedler Marsh enhancement as well.
I share your confidence, and I really believe the restored wetlands are going to provide great habitat for these turtles well into the future. And I'm further enthused by, look at this group of turtles that just popped up all at once. Look at that. But we don't usually see them in, 5 at a time on these tours, but here's a picture of 2 of them coming up at a time. Sometimes you get the flippers, sometimes you get a little shell. And they do vary in size. Some of them could be as small as a dinner plate. Others could have a shell upwards of 4 to 5 feet long. However, they are all juveniles, and that's generally between the ages of 1 to 30 years old. But their juvenile stage is based on their size. They have to be a certain size to go out and brave the open ocean. They have to get here first, obviously, when they're small, but once they get to a safe haven, then they want to grow up and be bigger before they then spend the rest of their lives out in the open ocean. So there's been a big question amongst many researchers and sea turtle enthusiasts is, where are they going? How many are there? What's going on? So one thing that has occurred is the Aquarium of the Pacific has developed a citizen science sea turtle monitoring program. And every first Saturday, a group of volunteers will line up at 10 different stations up and down the San Gabriel River, and for 30 minutes they will all watch at those stations and count the number of surfacings. And based on about 5 or 6 years of data, it's been determined that there's around 30 to 40 individual Pacific green sea turtles in the river at any one time. And they are there all of the time. I've seen them while it's raining. I've seen them after a rain. I've seen them in the evening. I've seen them in the morning, middle of the day, windy. It doesn't matter. All seasons, all year long. These sea turtles are here all the time. But they must be moving, right? And so some researchers have wondered, where are they going? And actually one thing that they found, CSULB researchers actually put tags on them, and through telemetry we were able to track them. And they found that they do follow some of the warm water. And what is interesting, in the summertime, they found sea turtles actually going all the way up the river, where it actually gets a little brackish. And they go and hang out right here where the water comes off of the concrete. So the San Gabriel River is concretized from here to Willow Springs. And so the water is getting warm. And in the summertime, it gets nice and warm. So a turtle bathtub gets formed right here. And the turtles go up there. And there's probably a lot of disturbance and good things to munch on as well. And just so you know, a juvenile sea turtle is omnivorous. So they're eating algae, maybe eelgrass, and enjoying, a jellyfish or two. So they do move upriver, which is cool, but they also track them heading over to the embayment just south, which I spoke about at the very beginning, which is Anaheim Bay. And Anaheim Bay is where the Seal Beach National Wildlife Refuge is found, and it is actually a pretty sizable natural marsh. A lot of these tidal channels are historic, and the sea turtles will head over to this site, and they'll actually target a mitigation site right here, which is a very shallow water pond. And they go through all these channels, and they actually have to go through a culvert to get in there. And this is one place I also guarantee you can see a sea turtle. You hang out here long enough, and you'll see one pop up. And they hang out back here and spend a lot of their time. And so, the way that they're getting back here is they're swimming out of the San Gabriel River, across Seal Beach, into the jetties, going into the Naval Weapons Station, going past a large ship armed with all sorts of weapons, and then going under this bridge and into the bay. Super cool. But I'm not impressed. And that's because the Pacific green sea turtle is a circumglobal creature. So what it means is this sea turtle has the ability to swim all over the place in the ocean. And these are the same species of sea turtles that you'll see in Hawaii. And in fact, these sea turtles likely started their lives much further away from here, way down on the white sandy beaches of Michoacan and mainland Mexico. So here we are in Playa Azul in Michoacan, Mexico, and you can see these expansive white sand beaches. You can see natural estuarine systems, and so this is a great place to be born if you're a sea turtle. However, coastal development has impacted sea turtle nesting grounds on mainland Mexico because it's a great place to have a resort. And so these precious little babies are finding even more constraints to hatching from their nests and getting into the water. It's one thing to have a bird pick you off. It's another thing to have a beach chair on top of your nest. So there's been lots of challenges and lots of great conservation going on in Mexico to keep these nesting grounds safe and still productive. But one of the #1 places where many different species, including the Pacific green sea turtle, have really successful nests is way off the coast of Mexico on a group of small islands. And here's one of those islands here. And I'm going to take an attempt to say it, and then Jade's going to probably do it better than me. I messed it up already. Do it, Jade.
I think it's Ravihahajido.
There we go. Ravihahajido Islands. And we've been told that the majority of our eastern Pacific green sea turtles, Chelonia mitis, are actually born and originate on this island group right here. And what's incredible about all of that is if you're a male sea turtle, you're born on one of the beaches on this island, and then you're in the ocean for the rest of your life. You never go back onto land ever again. You may hang out in the San Gabriel River, but you're swimming around. And then when you become mature, you go out to the sea turtle breeding grounds, which nobody really knows where they are, and then you will mate with a female sea turtle if you're lucky enough. And that female sea turtle, however, will leave the ocean, and she will swim back to the same exact beach that she was born on to lay her own eggs. And that's just so remarkable. So everyone's so impressed that these sea turtles are in the San Gabriel River. I'm not that impressed. They get around. They are a circumglobal organism. So you know, much respect to these Pacific green sea turtles. And what that means is now in Los Cerritos Wetlands we have an obligation of conservation for this piece of river, for all of the surrounding uses, whether it's industrial or residential or commercial, and we have an obligation to restore these wetlands. And the Los Cerritos Wetlands Land Trust is putting so much time and energy into that, educating people, and also the Los Cerritos Wetlands Authority, who is one of the landowners here, is putting lots of time and energy to putting together plans for the restoration. And not only will this restoration aid the Pacific green sea turtle, but a number of other wonderful special status species that call Southern California coastal wetlands their home. Well, we saw sea turtles. We talked about all sorts of other things, and I thought that was a really enjoyable tour. On behalf of Jade Barami, I thank you. My name is, again, Eric Zahn, and I look forward to you all attending another one of these virtual tours of Los Cerritos Wetlands. Until then, make sure to check in with us, because we will have some other virtual experiences coming your way from our staff and colleagues who are on the ground in the wetlands. So stay tuned. Thank you. And until then, please be safe.
Bye. Thank you.